Why does Meghan Markle make her own pretzel bags? They don't know why.
That's interesting. She takes it from one bag and puts it in another bag.
Picture this. You're Meghan Markle. You've married into the world's most famous monarchy. You've left the palace for the California sunshine. And now late-night TV hosts are laughing at the way you repackage pretzels. Not your politics. Not your charity work. Pretzels. It started as a joke, but it snowballed into something bigger.
All just craziness going around and around.
A Hollywood-wide roast of Meghan and Harry's entire brand. From Jimmy Fallon and Ryan Reynolds to the Osbournes to Family Guy to Bill Maher.
You know, you can't be, these people were so mean to us, poor us, and we don't want all this attention. And then let me write a book about how much we don't want attention.
The world's comedians have turned the royal rebels into their favorite punchline. But here's the twist. Behind the laughs, the mockery cuts deep. Because these jokes aren't just about jam jars and honeypots. They're about the collapse of a carefully constructed image. And once Hollywood decides you're a joke, that's a label that sticks.
You've been handed the world and every major contract, you had podcasts, you have all of this, and you didn't deliver because
there's nothing to deliver.
Yeah, because you don't have it.
Stay with me, because we're breaking down exactly how Meghan and Harry went from royal rebels to the butt of every comedian's monologue. And trust me, you'll want to see the Conan O'Brien and Ryan Reynolds moment that had me rewinding the clip 5 times. It all kicked off with Jimmy Fallon.
It's strange when you marry a prince and you're the breadwinner of the family. Meghan was excited while Prince Harry was like, what the hell am I going to do with 3,000 cases of wildflower honey?
On The Tonight Show, Fallon zoomed in on one of Meghan's domestic goddess quirks, her oddly specific cooking show habit of taking pretzels out of one bag and putting them into another bag. Now, on its own, that sounds like harmless filler content, a throwaway moment. But Fallon didn't let it slide. He stretched it out, dragging the bit until the audience was in stitches. Pretzels became a metaphor. He poked fun at Meghan's carefully curated kitchen routine, then pivoted to her jars of wildflower honey, turning the whole scene into a running gag about privilege dressed up as homemaking. And Harry? Oh, Fallon had a field day. He turned the prince into the world's saddest personal assistant, a man once third in line to the throne, now downgraded to jar carrier. The imagery was brutal, a royal butler without a palace, stocking shelves like a grocery store trainee who accidentally married into HR. The punchline landed even harder because of the timing. Meghan had just unveiled her American Riviera Orchard lifestyle brand. To her credit, the first batch of jam jars sold out in under an hour, a marketer's dream. But instead of headlines celebrating her success, the internet piled on with memes sharper than any review. Harry came back from Afghanistan to be Meghan's honey salesman. From royal duties to retail duties. Fallon's crowd roared. Clips of the monologue bounced around TikTok and X within hours. And here's the bigger issue. Once late-night hosts start mocking your marriage dynamic, not just your products, you've crossed into dangerous territory. That's not just comedy anymore. That's cultural branding. It stamps the Sussexes in front of millions of viewers with one word no rebrand can fix: ridiculous. But Fallon? He was just the warm-up act. The comedy roast before the main event. The real fireworks erupted when the Osbournes entered the ring.
Cuddly, lovey, holding hands, going everywhere together. It's so disingenuous.
First up was Kelly Osbourne, rock royalty, reality TV veteran, and not exactly known for holding back. On a talk show panel, she went nuclear on Harry with a rant so raw, producers had to bleep her out.
I think Harry's a f***ing twat. I do.
Her exact words? I think Harry is a That's not shade, that's a direct hit. Kelly ripped into him as a pampered complainer, mocking his habit of painting himself as the only man on earth with mental health struggles while sitting on inherited wealth, living in multi-million-dollar Montecito estates, and cashing in on his royal surname. And here's what made it sting even more. The Osbournes aren't strangers to dysfunction.
My life was so hard. Everybody's f***ing life is hard.
Yeah,
you were the
right.
prince of a goddamn country.
They practically invented the modern reality TV family meltdown. So, when Kelly Osbourne of all people brands you the winner, that sticks like glue. Then Sharon stepped in, and if Kelly lit the match, Sharon poured gasoline.
The curtsy, the thing she said about medieval times, her lunch with the Queen was like medieval times, which, as you know, is a Disney-type entertainment place for kids. And it's just so horribly disrespectful.
She zeroed in on Meghan's infamous curtsy story, where Meghan compared bowing to the late Queen to something out of medieval times, the kitschy dinner theater chain. Sharon shredded it as tone-deaf, historically clueless, and flat-out disrespectful to a 1,000-year-old institution. But she didn't stop there. She ripped into the Sussexes' constant public hand-holding, dismissing it as staged intimacy. Disingenuous, she said. Every appearance, every photo op, she framed as a carefully orchestrated PR performance. Then came the knockout punch, Sharon's verdict. Meghan and Harry, she said, don't want privacy, they want profit.
Don't bring it to the public. Nobody wants to know about it. Every family has problems.
And their only reliable revenue stream? Royal drama. Every interview, every docuseries, every memoir, it's all the same currency. Selling grievances. The Osbournes turned what could have been shrugged off as just another celebrity opinion into a cultural moment. Because if the family who monetized chaos is calling you exploitative, then suddenly the Sussex brand looks less like victimhood and more like a business model. One of Sharon's most devastating points wasn't even about Meghan or Harry directly, it was about their kids.
There's no cousins, no aunts and uncles, no other grandparents. There's 2 little babies that have grown up that will never meet or know their cousin.
She noted that Archie and Lilibet are growing up cut off from cousins, aunts, uncles, and even their grandfather. No Christmas mornings with the royal cousins. No big family gatherings. Just isolation. Think about that. 2 kids who could have grown up with one of the most famous extended families in the world, instead being raised like royal exiles. Sharon framed it not as protection, but as a tragedy. And then she dropped a personal story that blew the room away. She revealed she didn't speak to her own father for 18 years.
Millions and millions I had to pay because my father got me in the crap. But the situation is, when he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, I went to him and took care of him because he's my father.
He cost her millions. But when he got Alzheimer's, she forgave him and cared for him. The implication was brutal. If Sharon Osbourne could reconcile with a father who nearly ruined her financially, why can't Harry find it in himself to make peace with Charles? Once the Osbournes opened the floodgates, the flood really came. Suddenly, mocking Harry and Meghan wasn't just a tabloid sport, it was open season in mainstream comedy. At the Golden Globes, Joe Coy delivered a one-liner so sharp it practically echoed. Turns out Prince Harry and Meghan Markle will still get paid millions for doing absolutely nothing. And that's just by Netflix. The punchline detonated. The camera panned across Hollywood's A-list, actors, directors, producers, all roaring with laughter. And here's why it hit so hard. This was a room full of people who spent years grinding on projects. Long nights on set, endless rewrites, brutal promo tours. To them, the idea of Harry and Meghan cashing multi-million-dollar checks for a few hours of interviews and a camera crew trailing them around Montecito? It was comedy gold. And the hits just kept coming. Family Guy skewered the Sussexes in a savage, animated cutaway, portraying them as out-of-touch influencers hawking sponsored Instagram posts, peddling tea detoxes and face creams instead of royal duties. Jimmy Carr twisted the knife deeper. On stage, he mocked Meghan's self-styled feminism by pointing out the contradiction everyone else tiptoes around. She quit her Hollywood career to marry into the monarchy.
Meghan Markle is, of course, a lifelong feminist, which she's demonstrated by marrying a prince and giving up her job.
The feminist who became a duchess, only to later brand herself as a victim of the very system she pursued. Then came Bill Maher, no stranger to controversy and no fan of sugarcoating. On Real Time, he blasted them as walking contradictions.
You're complaining about your hard life and you're so privileged. It's just so weird.
It's ridiculous.
Hypocrites, he said, begging for privacy while selling every intimate detail of their lives to the highest bidder.
You know, you can't be, these people were so mean to us, poor us, and we don't want all this attention, and then let me write a book about how much we don't want attention.
Maher reminded his audience of the Queen's legendary mantra, never complain, never explain, the iron rule that defined her reign. And then he twisted the dagger with brutal simplicity. Harry and Meghan's brand is literally the opposite. They complain, they explain, they monetize both. By this point, it wasn't just late-night hosts or cartoon writers. It was a cultural pylon. The Sussexes had gone from being the couple who broke free from royal shackles to the punchline everyone wanted a piece of. And when Hollywood, the very industry that once embraced them, starts laughing at you on stage, that's not just comedy. That's a reputation collapse. But the moment that went viral, the one that crystallized the mockery, came on Conan O'Brien's podcast with Ryan Reynolds. Reynolds was telling a story about his dad, a food broker who used to sell jam and tiny yogurts. Conan jumped in with the perfect punchline. He works for Meghan Markle. Yes, tiny jams, harvestable jams. They riffed back and forth, turning Harry into a door-to-door jam salesman, schlepping jars around Montecito.
It's like, no, I really am a middleman for jars of jam.
He works for Meghan Markle.
Yes.
Really tiny jams, harvestable jams.
Yes, exactly.
Made from the oils of Montecito.
The audience loved it. And here's why it hit so hard. Reynolds and Conan aren't tabloid loudmouths. They're A-list comedians with massive mainstream credibility. When they reduce your multi-million-dollar brand to tiny jams, that's the cultural verdict. And then came Tim Dillon, the comic wrecking ball who never tiptoes, never sugarcoats. If Fallon was playful and the Osbournes were sharp, Dillon was nuclear. On stage, he tore into Meghan with a comparison that had audiences howling. She wasn't just a duchess or an actress, she was the ultimate real housewife. The kind of character who sees a naive ginger prince at a party, sizes him up, and thinks, yes, that one. That's my ticket. In Dillon's telling, Meghan didn't fall in love with Harry. She cast him. She plucked him from his centuries-old royal script, ripped him out of Buckingham Palace, and dropped him straight into Beverly Hills luxury. Suddenly, Harry wasn't a prince anymore. He was a California lifestyle accessory. Just another feature in Meghan's brand, like a curated fruit bowl or a rustic outdoor candle. But Dillon didn't stop there. He zoomed out and attacked the very core of Meghan's empire, this idea of artisanal superiority. In his words, Meghan's business model only works if she treats her customers like pigs in the mud.
She just thinks we're all monsters and we're all just kind of pigs in the mud, and that she's helping us with jam and honey.
Ordinary people wallowing in mediocrity, waiting for her to sprinkle salvation in the form of overpriced jam, honey, or a monogrammed basket. It wasn't just a roast. It was an indictment. Dillon was essentially saying Meghan's brand isn't about empowerment or elegance.
Well, what's brilliant about what she's doing is she knows people want to spend money, and spending money makes them feel like they're getting something that's better, even though it might not necessarily be true.
It's about contempt. A worldview where her followers are beneath her, and her products are the ladder they can climb to touch her rarefied air. And that's why it stung. Because the laughter wasn't just about jam. It was about the sneaking suspicion that Meghan and Harry don't see their audience as equals at all. They see them as wallets, as customers to be managed, not supporters to be respected. So what do all these jokes add up to? It's not just ridicule, it's rejection. Think about it, the entertainment industry, the same stage Meghan once dreamed of conquering, the same spotlight Harry stepped into when he walked away from the palace, has turned its back on them. These aren't admiring nods anymore. These are roars of laughter, and not the good kind. The comedians, the late-night hosts, the meme factories online, they've stopped treating Meghan and Harry as inspirational figures. They're not icons, they're not role models, and they're certainly not thought leaders. They've become material. They're setups for punchlines. Every move they make, every product they launch, every carefully staged photo op, it doesn't build their brand anymore. It feeds the comedy cycle. Fallon doesn't joke about them, he jokes through them. Family Guy doesn't parody strangers, it parodies cultural fixtures. And Meghan and Harry? They've been reduced to caricatures. That's the real danger here. Because once the cultural current decides you're a meme, you can't swim against it. You can't explain your way out. You can't rebrand. You're stuck. A brand that wanted to sell aspiration is now drowning in mockery. And that's the brutal truth. They're not controlling the narrative anymore. They're feeding the punchlines. So here's the question. When the world stops taking you seriously, what happens next? Harry and Meghan left the monarchy to build their own empire. But if every new venture is met with laughter instead of respect, can that empire ever stand? Or are they destined to become exactly what comedians already paint them as, the royal couple who turn themselves into a soap opera and then into a punchline? Tell me in the comments, do you think Meghan and Harry will find a way to turn this around, or is the damage already done? Because one thing's for sure, in Hollywood, once you become the joke, it's almost impossible to take back the punchline. And that's where Meghan and Harry are now.